Washington State's legislative session just came to an end here in 2022. Let me talk about one of the bills that I forgot to mention earlier. I mean, this one was exceptionally stupid, and you wait until you hear what this one was. Thank you for watching. My name is Glen Morgan, and this is We the Govern. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the Washington State legislative session just came to an end here in 2022. The legislators are out on the campaign road, presumably, and there was a bill that was brought up in my comment section on the last video that I did about all the stupid bills that have been proposed. And this one I forgot about, but it really deserves special mention here. It didn't become law, but it's certainly worth talking about. And specifically, this one had to do with life vests, of all things. And it was House Bill 1707. It wasn't a particularly exciting topic normally. You'd think it'd be kind of classic government saying, hey, you need to wear life vests. But this one made news. And one of the reasons why this is kind of significant is that Washington State has a lot of lakes, a lot of rivers in eastern Washington, as well as in western Washington. Of course, we have Puget Sound. And so it gets a lot of attention because people are out on the water all the time with canoes and kayaks and all other kinds of boating activity. And 5 legislators decided to make this bill, the proposal about life jackets or water safety. And basically what this House bill did is it exempted Native Americans from wearing life jackets using small watercraft out on the water. And what was silly about this is it kind of made national news because in the open hearing, and I've got that link down below, you can see the sponsor of the bill there basically saying, hey, these situations that they, meaning the Native Americans, where they have either extensive training or traditionally very used to our cold waters for eons, essentially, or they're very closely supervised, and therefore let's exempt them from wearing life jackets. Now, the absurdity of this, of course, is that if you actually looked at the CDC statistics on drowning, you'll actually see that Native Americans have a substantially higher rate of drowning, 2 times higher actually than the demographic typical that'd be out there swimming, and 2.7 times higher than other people when it comes to actually swimming out in the open water. And so of any group of people, this is a group that you'd actually want to protect. You don't want to make it actually easier for them to drown. You don't want to make it exempted, so they say encourage them not to wear life jackets. but instead what they're trying, what the sponsor and presumably all 5 of these sponsors felt about this bill was that they were going to specifically exempt natives, so the tribal members, so they don't have to wear life vests to presumably make it easier for them to drown even more often than they currently do. It was obviously just a terribly thought out bill and very ridiculous. People are wondering, how could somebody possibly be so ignorant as these 5 people were in proposing this bill, even if they think they had some kind of good intentions behind it. And you can listen to the hearing. I don't think that they hate Native Americans, but it was just this bizarre approach and very awoke lefty. All these were Democrats. They were all left-leaning politicians, and this is what they thought about the bill. Now, this kind of course comes out of this nostalgia. As somebody 5th-generation Washingtonian, I share this kind of interest in our local history here. And of course, the Native tribes that lived particularly on Puget Sound were well known for their war canoes or their way of going around in cedar canoes all over Puget Sound, all the communities that surround Puget Sound in particular. There's a lot of nostalgia for this. Old photos you can still see. I had a great uncle that used to paint images of some of these canoes, and so it was really well known. And so I guess they're hearkening back to this nostalgia. However, fortunately, modern tribal members who are out there actually kind of experiencing canoeing in their modern designed old war canoes, they're much wiser than these legislators are because they actually do wear life vests when they're actually out there in Puget Sound. It's a much smarter thing to do. I mean, if you aren't going to wear life vests out there, let me tell you, these waters are very cold, and it's a long ways to shore, and the last thing you're going to want is to be out there without a life vest in the water. You certainly greatly reduce your chances of survival and of drowning, but This proposal was silly to me. So, of course, the logical thing is that most people shouldn't expect government to tell them what to do. It's a really terrible way to live your life, and although government may want to think that they can involve themselves in every little detail of your life, as all these legislators who made this bill proposal clearly do think, if you're out there kayaking in Puget Sound or going anywhere out on the water, the best thing to do is to wear a life jacket, regardless of whether the government's going to give you a ticket or not. And they shouldn't be given racially preferenced ideas about, well, you don't have to wear a life jacket, but you do, like they did in this particular bill. And of course, that's just an example of wokeism out of control and political correctness out of control in the proposal that they had. But nevertheless, this bill certainly deserves being called out, and all the sponsors of this bill, for one of the more stupid ideas that have been proposed in this last legislative session. Fortunately, it didn't become law, and that's good. A lot of really bad bills that were proposed were openly mocked by myself and many others around the state, and it did not become law. And I will point out, too, just for clarification, that the Post-Millennial and Fox News did cover this bill. I'm sorry I didn't cover it in my last video on the subject, but it's worth covering right now. Thank you for the very astute viewer of my video channel who made a comment about that in the last video, and so I've just responded to cover that bill because it was a very silly and bad idea that it was proposed. So if you want to learn more, go to the video description down below. I've linked to the bill and some of the newspaper articles on it, a little bit more of the background there as well. And if you want to learn more, go to wethegovern.com. I encourage you to subscribe to both our free email newsletter and also here to the channel if you haven't already. And I always want to remind people, when you're paying attention to government, that you have to be engaged, because the future does belong to those who show up.